I can hear you, man. Just doing dishes before the next panel. Oh, okay. Okay. So what happens if there's like 200 people in here? Would it still function good? Okay. This would probably run out. And yeah, this would probably run pretty well on a like a mining rig. All right, man. I got to finish up these chores for the next panel. I'll see you shortly.
Imagine you wake up and if you're like me, you go check your phone. So you grab your phone, you look at it, and it says no connection, which is odd because you're at home or in a hotel room. When you went to sleep, your phone was working fine and communicating perfectly. So you wonder what's going on. The data is working, the Wi-Fi is working, but you don't have regular phone connection. And then you start seeing weird text messages and more importantly, weird emails pop up saying, are you trying to change your password? Are you trying to reset your password? Did you log in from a new device in another country? So now, things start coming together and you start wondering, why am I getting these since I was sleeping? Well, that is a scenario where you've been SIM swapped and you're the victim of a SIM attack. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to survive one. Anyone in the security community would tell you that there's no way to be hack-proof. You're always going to have some exposure, especially when you're relying on third parties for your security, like the telco company, like your internet provider. These are huge organizations that often care about security, but don't have the necessary means to individually secure accounts. They care about their organization's security, not necessarily your crypto wallet on your phone. So, a quick intro. I've been in the space for a long time. In the past 3 years, been consulting and advising different projects on the best ways to implement blockchain solutions for their business. I'm the founder and CEO of Beyond Enterprises, which used to be CrowdMentor. Now we rebranded last year. And let's define what it is. So a SIM attack, or SIM cloning splitting, as it's called sometimes, is a malicious attack to gain access to your identity and to your phone. Obviously, the attacker wants to take control of a device that is going to simulate your activity and use that for financial gain. I've heard of a lot of SIM attacks that are designed to benefit financially. Obviously, someone could use it to take revenge or do other malicious things once they have your identity and control your accounts, but mostly it's done for financial gain. And once they have access to your phone and to your apps, the attackers usually go for your online banking, brokerage, financial services, and of course, all of your crypto. Why crypto? Because as we all know, if you get hacked and your bank account is emptied, there is government insurance on it. The banks can reverse some of those transactions. So it's somewhat more reversible than a crypto transaction. If someone transfers out all your Bitcoin, it's final. You're not going to get it back. There's no reversal. That's not how crypto works. So, of course, the attackers prefer crypto. How does a SIM attack work? And I'm sure some of you here know and understand how it works, but there's actually 2 stages to a SIM attack. The hacker first has to gain access to the telco's backend, because the attackers started with faking IDs and pretending to be you, but that's very high risk. They need to be physically present in a cell phone store somewhere where they can activate the new SIM, and that physical presence gives them a lot of exposure. Hackers don't like exposure. They want to be in the darkness, in the shadows, and operate from there. So the second step was they realized, well, there are a lot of not well-paid telco employees that can actually share their access, and created these dark web marketplaces for these people to go and, if you're making minimum wage in US and someone says, you know what, if you leaked your credentials because you have admin access to AT&T's console, I'll give you $10,000. At one time, that was less than one Bitcoin.
Welcome to a live demo of the Convergence Player Acquisition Engine.
Hey guys, what is up? Block Decentral here, and I am back with another video on the blockchain. This time I am taking a look at Chibi Fighters. This is a decentralized application, dApp, on the Ethereum blockchain that I've been taking a look at for quite a while now. I first heard of it a few months ago, however my Discord has been blowing up from the community members with different things on Chibi Fighters like giveaways and
Yes. Yeah, Nick's coming in. Yeah. Hmm? Yeah, Nick should be here in just a minute. Oh, yes. Thank you. Yeah, it's in the adjacent building to the south. Like, yeah, that's where I took my break. It's to get a new get up. Mm-hmm. There's Nick. Cool.
You hear me all right?
Sounds good, man.
Cool. Is there any way to change the input?
The music, you can click the M as in mic button. It'll cut off the music.
Oh, no, I just meant, is there a way to change which mic I'm using?
Interesting.
If not, that's cool.
Like the microphone icon in the browser, maybe, and you can drop down.
Yeah.
Not sure.
That's all right. I mean, you can hear me, so don't worry about it.
Yep. So we'll get rolling in a few minutes. So we are streaming on the Silicon Nexus YouTube. So we do have that going. We'll have people coming in here shortly as well. I think we got some of the wings. In the meantime, and we threw up Reality Clash for a little bit. If you guys want to check that out, up on the big board behind me.
Nice.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Chris just showed me how to do it in a private chat, so pretty comfortable with it now. All right, you want me to wait a couple minutes? Okay. You see that all right? Oh, try reloading it. Looks like my images are going to have trouble. Hang on. Yeah, it was just giving me a weird error. I'll try it again. Oh, it was working? Okay. I see. It's Google Slides or whatever. I could download it, I guess. Okay, we'll keep it like this then. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll just leave it like this so the pictures don't get messed up.
Okay. 1 second, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. Always good to support. That's really cool. I can see this gamer jibe thing becoming a big deal. Yeah, that would be nice. I was kind of looking forward to it this year, but obviously I was looking forward to a lot this year. That didn't happen. Yeah, that would have been nice.
But here we are in a virtual world, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll probably have some people trickle in, but we're going to go ahead and get started.
Okay.
All right. Fantastic. Yeah, that was a good piece of info. That's great. All right, so we're going to get started. Give me 1 second here. A couple of housekeeping things. If you want to take a look at the presentation that Nick has up, go to the bottom right-hand corner and click the video icon. And you're going to scroll over his video and hit the 3 dots. And then you have an option to full screen it. So feel free to do that if you'd like to see the information a little bit better. That's on the bottom right-hand corner. Click video. If you want to jump on video. Gotcha. Yeah. So you're right. So full screen or picture in picture, those 2 options. So kind of play around with it and see what you like. You're able to do that. And question wise, there's 2 ways to ask questions. So we can stack questions throughout the keynote. One way to do it is click the text chat bottom right hand corner. Just click the bubble and go ahead and type in a question anytime, and then we'll ask it Q&A. Or you can just wait and then raise your hand. The bottom left-hand corner, there's a person, looks like a person icon that will raise your hand, and we'll call on you to ask some questions at the end. All right. Angel, you have a question? Okay. That was quick. That was quick, right? So we've had some new people jump in. So in the back. So thanks for jumping on. Really appreciate it. We've got Nick Ceponero, CIO and the co-founder, the Divi project. Nick, really appreciate you taking the time to do this keynote.
It's my pleasure. Once again, I can't thank you guys enough for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak. It's always a cool opportunity, and it's even cooler because can I say I'm in a video game? Does that count now?
Oh, that's true, right?
Can I call my mom and tell her I'm in a video game?
Exactly. And real quick before we get started, I had Nick in here doing a walkthrough, and I haven't heard you laugh so much. But we were having a blast in here when we did a walkthrough. I think it was like a couple of days ago. So that was a lot of fun. So again, appreciate you're here.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And as a gamer, it's a really cool thing to see. It's interesting always how these events, while sort of catastrophic in to some degree,
Mhm.
create and produce amazing new technologies like GamerJibe. So really cool. And once again, thank you.
Well, I'm gonna step down and give you the floor.
All right, appreciate it. So yeah, as Chris mentioned, my name is Nick Saponaro. I'm the Chief Information Officer of the Divi Project, which is a cryptocurrency that is basically aimed at creating a digital finance ecosystem that is accessible and easy to use across both cryptocurrency and the traditional finance world. Little background on me: I got involved with cryptocurrency like many people as a trader early on. Had heard about Bitcoin a lot earlier on, but didn't have the money or really interest to invest. Tried mining a little bit, but didn't really understand what it was at the time. I was pretty young. And a few years later, a buddy of mine told me about a project called Ethereum. And he's like, "Yeah, man, you got to get in. It's this really cool new thing. It's already up to 80 cents or whatever." So I gave it a shot. I bought Bitcoin off a guy in a mall. Felt like a different kind of deal. And he sold me my first Bitcoin, and I went from there and bought some Ethereum. Had no idea really what I was buying at the time. I was developing freelance, but I wasn't a blockchain developer or anything like that at the time. I was just throwing money at something basically. Of course, Ethereum appreciated in value, to put it lightly, and that gave me a lot more interest in the space. So I started actually doing some research. I was pretty deep into freelance development at the time as well, so was reading a lot and picked up Mastering Bitcoin. And I mean, from there it was just a wrap. It was seeing not just from the technical perspective of what crypto is, but seeing from the philosophical perspective and the fundamental perspective of what it means to society. It really generated a huge passion. And so for the past 3 years, I've basically spent my life building tools to make cryptocurrency more adoptable and adaptable to everyday life, as well as speaking on mass adoption. But recently, I realized that I've been speaking about the wrong thing. I've been talking about mass adoption so much that I forgot that there's a step before adoption, which is adaptation. This is a two-way street, right? We need to build things that adapt to everyday life, or that enhance everyday life, and then people will adopt it. Forcing something down people's throats never seems to work. And we'll talk about that quite a bit in this presentation. But before we do, I want to take you basically down the path that I took to this realization. As somebody who has been speaking about adoption for so long, I guess sometimes we get so close to the problem that we forget what the problem was in the beginning to start with. So, let's start from the top, where cryptocurrency and blockchain and Bitcoin, of course, have really redefined a few things, but primarily value, right? Value and cost already were conflated quite a bit, and they continuously are conflated, right? Where cost is really just the amount something costs, the amount that something is priced at. This shirt costs $5, this sandwich costs $10, whatever. But value is what something is worth to you, right? I think a lot of people are familiar with this concept. You could buy a steak at a grocery store for $10, and the same steak cooked is $50 at a restaurant. Is it worth $50 to you? Maybe, maybe not. But that is what is beautiful about freedom of choice and value. You get to come to a consensus on what value is and what it means to you. And that is essentially what is happening with cryptocurrency. We've redefined what value means, and we're coming to a new consensus on what it means to the global mind share at large. But it also has redefined something else, and this one's more obvious, which is money. And it's for the first time, we've actually begun to question what money is. I don't think we've ever actually sat down and said, what is money? It's just part of our life, right? And a lot of people, if you ask them what is money, they'll give you a different answer. You know, you could ask 10 people, get 10 different answers. What is money? And really what those people are giving you is not the answer to the question. They're giving you functions of money. It's a unit of account. It's a way to buy things. It's something that you need to buy, you know, the supplies that you need to live and things like that, right? But those are functions of money, not the purpose of money, not what it actually is. What money truly is communication, a form of communication, a language, a way to transmit value across borders, across societies, across cultures. Money is really just the language that you speak. And some people speak euro, some people speak USD, some people speak Zimbabwe dollars. But it doesn't matter because we can come to a consensus on what something costs based on our value language, right? So really now what crypto has given us is the ability to choose which language we want to speak. Do you want to speak euro? Do you want to speak dollar? Do you even want to speak fiat? Right now, for the first time ever, we have this ability to choose not just federated currencies, but also branded digital currencies like Bitcoin, Litecoin, Divi, Ethereum, and the 2,000, 5,000, however many there are today, other currencies that exist within the cryptocurrency landscape. Right. And I think that this matters in a much greater degree than we even imagined in the beginning, and definitely more than Satoshi imagined when he conceptualized the white paper for Bitcoin. So why does this matter? Right. It matters because from the day you're born, you're basically indoctrinated into one language of value. In fact, most of us are indoctrinated in one actual language for communication and speech, right? And writing and things like that. But in short order, as a speaker, as a writer or whatever, as a kid growing up, you realize that you can speak other languages. If you want to learn Spanish, you can take a Spanish class. If you want to learn whatever, you can learn another language. But we've never really been aware that we had another choice in currency. You basically live within the structure of your economy in the country that you grew up in. And then maybe you travel and you exchange that currency or whatever, but we're still sort of in the same fiat ecosystem. We've never until now even known that there was a choice, and really there wasn't, right? Because you're still just trapped in like some federated fiat currency. So it also brings about the question, if we have a choice in what money we want to use, do we have a choice in who gets to issue it? Until now, it's been governments and banks issuing money. The Federal Reserve, which, is technically not part of the US government, basically gets to decide how much money gets printed. And that's basically how it works in all the other countries. The banks essentially choose how much money gets to be printed because they own all the mortgages, they own all the debt in the whole world. And basically, money is used to pay off debts. So we end up with this question: who gets to print money? Well, of course, we know that there is the government issued money, but there's also consensus issued money. Now, there's Bitcoin, Ethereum, there's those are proof of work issued, there's proof of stake issued, and none of these are actually issued by any federal body or any bank. They're issued by us, by computers that we're running in our homes or in a warehouse or whatever, in the cloud, which are just in a warehouse too, but semantics. We have this for the first time, this choice to say we can issue the money. And it all comes back around to what we talked about in the beginning, which is value. We could all, make our own coin and generate as much of it as we want. But if you're the only one that own that coin, it's not really worth anything, is it? But if we begin to find consensus across borders, across societies and cultures, that yes, I do want to accept Bitcoin. I would prefer to accept Divi as a medium of exchange. Then you start to find value in that currency, and that's what we're starting to see with cryptocurrency as we sort of walk amongst the fourth industrial revolution. And you probably heard this before, the Industrial Revolution sort of pitch, but it's true nonetheless. No matter how many times it's said, it's important nonetheless, because if you look at the past, if we draw from the past to sort of not predict the future, but maybe draw a potentiality for the future, we can look all the way back to the first industrial revolution, which was the steam power, which disrupted the manufacturing industry, and it caused economic unrest. And this happens every time. Something is created, some innovation, some industry is disrupted, and then there's economic unrest and typically a war. We're not going to go into the war aspect in this presentation, but we will talk about the other facets of industrial revolution. Right now, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. The tech innovation being blockchain, to some extent AI, although it's not quite as robust yet. It's getting there. And we're disrupting everything, right? Everything is becoming automated, including governance, including, it's not just down to factory workers and blue collar tasks, which they, always try to say that's what's going to go first. But I've seen implementations that of blockchain that automate everything that a lawyer does, that a VC does, and of course that a government does to some extent. And we are beginning to see the economic unrest as a result of this incredible innovation and impending disruption, right? Right now, actually, I just read an article like 2 days ago that in the United States, the GDP, the gross domestic product, has retraced by 32%. That's worse than the Great Depression. And this is real. This is happening. I'm not making this up. You can find this. I think this was on CNBC or something. And we're not the only economy that is experiencing this type of retraction, right? We're seeing this in India. I think just had a 23 or 24% retraction in their GDP. And of course, it's all blamed on COVID-19. But in reality, this has been sort of a long time coming. After the Great Recession in 2008, we didn't really learn our lesson as far as, bailing out the banks, printing money, mortgage-backed securities being pumped and inflated. Those types of things all cause economic unrest. But most of all, even if you look, right, if we look at the 2008 Great Recession, it's like nothing compared to what we're experiencing right now. And it's because in 2008, we didn't have a technological intervention like we are seeing today, right? With blockchain, with AI, and automation. So with all of this said, there are people that follow this stuff and people like myself who are really interested in these things. But for the most part, the average individual is not going to take the time to learn about all this stuff and research the industrial revolutions of the past and whatnot. The reason being, they have normal everyday lives where I don't have a life and I do have time to do this stuff. And so we start to see some adoption of cryptocurrency as a result and some adoption of blockchain as a result, but they're primarily a niche group, which is why I always say that, crypto is still in its nascent stages. And I'll go into that in a minute. So there are basically three types of people that will be a part of this revolution. Some of them are already here, right? That's the crypto self-aware, the enthusiasts, the people that have known about Bitcoin and blockchain for a long time and that are already adopting it. They're using it in their everyday life, like myself, like I think Ken Bozak was here. I know he lives on it, and many others in the space, right? We have, the people that believe in the fundamentals of it, the freedom, the beating the banks, the privacy and censorship resistance and the decentralization aspect. And then you have the crypto curious. These are people who are basically aware of it, but probably skeptical. They definitely understand some of the ideals of freedom and beating the banks and stuff, but that doesn't really matter to them. They want less idealism and more action, more real action from this space. And then you have the crypto incognizant, people who are just totally unaware of it. Your mom and pop shops who are just trying to, make ends meet and things like that, who just, when they become a part of our landscape, a part of our ecosystem, they probably won't even know. Just like, their point of sale systems in their shops use the internet, but they probably don't really understand or know or need to know what the internet is. So as far as adoption is concerned, asking ourselves where we are in the cycle, not far. And it looks like I lost my thing here, but basically there's a chart that shows the diffusion of innovation, and it's a bell curve that looks, let me see if I can find it. Sorry, I didn't think I'd lose my pictures, but yeah, it looks like this, right? So we have the early phases, which are the innovators and the early adopters, and then you kind of reach a point of no adoption. You find trouble in actually creating a product that crosses the chasm. There's some good books on that, and reaches the early majority. Really, you don't start seeing a huge portion of market share until the late majority come in towards the end of the early majority phase. How do we know where we are? Well, if we take a look at the a report that Cointelegraph did earlier in the year, we can see how many people are actually using, want to use, and stopped using cryptocurrency. So we look at this staggering figure: 81% of people have never purchased crypto, ever, right? And this was back in January, so it might have changed a little bit, but probably not significantly enough. 10% say they fully understand how crypto works. That's fine. We don't need everybody to know how cryptocurrency works for them to use it. Just like the mom and pop shop in my example before, they don't know necessarily how the internet works, but they use it anyway. You still have 35% of people that think it's a fad, right? That it was just something that blew up in 2017 and it's never coming back. But here's the staggering one, and this is the one that we need to focus on. 14% of those who are not using cryptocurrency currently would like to do so. So like 86% of people don't even want to use cryptocurrency. That will change. That will change as the diffusion of innovation curve sort of progresses forward. But right now, we're looking at a very, very niche industry comparatively to most other industries. And a big part of that is because Bitcoin really hasn't found its product market fit. People don't really know what to call Bitcoin. As far as, when we go back to the beginning of this presentation, we know what money is. We know the functions of money, and we know fundamentally what money is. We know what it does, what it is, right? We don't really know what Bitcoin is yet. Is it a peer-to-peer digital cash? No. It's not possible to be, because cash, if you think about cash, what is it? What is cash? If I go to you and you're selling tomatoes by the side of the road, I hand you $3 for a bushel of tomatoes. You don't need to know my name. You'll know my name. I just basically created an anonymous transaction. Bitcoin, we've found, first of all, it's a public ledger, right? So even though they're basically hashes that are being shared publicly, you can still, we've found, trace a Bitcoin address back to the person. There are chain analysis companies now, and there are governments running incredibly detailed forensics on these blockchains. It's not as anonymous probably as we initially thought or hoped. The people that say, oh, Bitcoin just used for illicit activity, drug dealing, things like that, you would be a very bad drug dealer if you were using Bitcoin to transact, because it's not that hard to determine who you are. And that's okay. It's just the nature of it. And that's what makes it not cash, and probably never will be. Is it a unit of account? Well, no, it's probably not a good unit of account, because there's so much volatility with the price. This woman, she owns a flower shop, it looks like. Is she going to use Bitcoin, which by the time she's finished doing her monthly numbers has changed in price? Or think about it even at scale, on a larger commercial scale. You can't go to your stakeholders or your board of directors with a balance sheet that changes by the time they read it. It's not necessarily a good unit of account. So it's probably more of a store of value, right? It's more of a digital gold. And I think we pretty much all agree on that at this point. And again, that's fine. It doesn't have to be anything more than a store of value. And yeah, you can use it to transact to some extent, but it is more so a good way to save money. It does appreciate in value over time. That's historically true. It's the best performing asset in the last 11 years across all industries. So yeah, it's a great store of value. But is it the product market fit? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But in reality, majority of people don't own gold bars. Maybe they own some gold stock, but still, most people don't even invest in stocks. So is that really a good enough product market fit for mass adoption technology? I would say no, based on what we've talked about. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's always going to be the case. Even Jack Dorsey agrees. He's the CEO of Square and Twitter. Bitcoin is not functional as a currency right now. And of course, this article's cut off, but he goes on to talk about how it can be in different countries, developing nations and things like that. It's more viable as a currency, but the bottom line is right now, it's really not a currency. So how do we get to that point? What is the roadmap to getting blockchain, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency to that mass adoption that we want to see? And we go back to this chasm. We go back to really pre-chasm, because we only have, 14% of people wanting to adopt it. But maybe let's just say we're in the chasm for the sake of argument. And, there's basically several schools of thought as to why we're in the chasm and how to cross it. And we've been talking about usability as one of those things for a long time. I'm not the only one. I've given keynotes on the topic of usability. And I'm not the only one. A lot of people are always hearkening back to this usability topic, but really, again, we have to be considering adaptability. Yeah, it's one thing to make it usable, but if no one can use it because it doesn't adapt to their lifestyle or the lifestyle of that society, then there's no point in making it beautiful. And we can make these user interfaces really attractive and familiar. We can make the experiences really welcoming and benefit driven and easy to use and intuitive and all that stuff. But how do we make it adaptable? We have to look at other technologies that have been adopted en masse, right? To determine how to create ecosystems that end up being adopted by the general public. If we look at something like the BlackBerry, which was an amazing product, and was adopted by a niche group, mostly business people. To some extent, it reached the social sphere, but for the most part, let's be real, it was a business tool. But it's not anymore. Why? Was it a bad product? No, it just failed to continuously adapt to the users. Unlike one of the biggest products in the world, which is the iPhone. And not just the iPhone, but the whole iCloud, right? They've created an ecosystem of products that works interoperably, and you don't even realize that it's doing it, right? You don't need to know why your iCloud works, how your iPhone can copy and paste between itself and your iPad or your, MacBook. You don't care how that works. You just care that it does it, and it does it seamlessly and for the most part, flawlessly, right? So, one of the things that I'm focused on is creating a similar ecosystem where we have all the technology in the background, ways to earn cryptocurrency as well as spend it, ways to enable yourself to access the traditional finance world as well, and making it all super easy and seamlessly interoperable between not just other products within the ecosystem, but other chains. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Right now, I guess. Yeah. So, right now we're working with a company or a project called Zap, which is a decentralized oracle. If you don't know what oracles are, they're basically a way for blockchains to retrieve data from the internet or other places through means that would not typically be available to a blockchain. Blockchains aren't really internet infrastructure. So, they can't just call an API and get the price data from CoinMarketCap. And in doing that, it's not even necessarily verified data. So what oracles do is create a way for blockchains to do that. In this case, it's the Ethereum blockchain. Now, what's cool about oracles is the fact that they open up a whole new slew of benefits for blockchain developers and ultimately blockchain and cryptocurrency users. You basically have this, validated empirical data that can be used for whatever you want to do. So one of the things that we're doing right now is we're working with Zap to create the first cross-chain staking protocol, which will allow people to use Divi to stake on the Divi blockchain and earn stakes as well on the Ethereum blockchain. And those stakes can be used for whatever. If you want to chase the DeFi thing, if you want to, enable some other smart contract capabilities with Divi, etc., it is all basically at your hands with the Zap partnership. Now, this is all cool, and we may understand this. Some of you may not understand it. That's fine. But it shouldn't matter, right? How do we adapt? All of the stuff I just talked about should never have to be talked about, except in, industry circumstances and, conferences and things like that, and with other developers. All of this stuff is way too complicated for the average person to understand or to even care about understanding. They shouldn't need to. So how do we adapt to the everyday person? I really believe gaming is one of those ways. I believe that gaming is something that is already a part of so many people's lives, including my own. Silicon Nexus putting on this incredible event is obviously a proponent of blockchain gaming. I think that this is probably one of the biggest opportunities. And now that we have the tools, I feel like 5 years ago, there's no way we could be making the incredible games that exist now on blockchain. I mean, you have things like Tarian. I just saw a trailer before this presentation for, it's called, sorry, correct me afterwards, something reality. It was like a virtual reality VR looking game on the blockchain. It looks amazing. Like, that is a real game. You have Siege Worlds, which is another massively multiplayer game that you can earn real cryptocurrency by playing. I mean, all of these things are basically adapting to the framework that exists, right? Video games have always had in-game currency, credits, whatever you want to call them. Every game has had one. And now we have things like Fortnite, Apex Legends, and other games that are part of this new virtual world. When I was a kid, games would come out pretty much like every other year or whatever, every 3 years. It would be the sequel. And the sequel after that. And that's how it worked. But now games don't come out like that, right? Fortnite has been the same Fortnite since the beginning, but they have seasons now. And you continue to live within the game. And because of that, you are purchasing things within that game. You're having Travis Scott come on and do concerts within that game. You're doing things, you're living within the world, right? And within that world, you're using the currency that exists. But that only brings us back to the initial point that I had, which is indoctrination. We shouldn't continuously indoctrinate ourselves into new currencies, but instead create ecosystems that allow for multiple currencies to exist and go across all of the different worlds that we want to exist within. And that's what we're starting to see with blockchain. In Torian, you might earn some Divi, and then you can go use that Divi in Siege Worlds to purchase a new shirt or enter games or whatever you want to do. And that is exactly how we move forward with adapting to the individual's life. Another way that we can adapt is through sort of games within games, right? So earning money on the side is a big deal in our society right now. The gig economy has something like 35% of American workers are participating in it, at least pre-COVID, of course, but we'll just use those numbers for sake of argument. The gig economy is almost a necessity for some people to supplement their income or even just supplant their income, right? So it is a big portion of our society, and things like Chalk, which allow you to earn cryptocurrency for competing in tournaments. That's another way that we're adapting people to cryptocurrency and adapting cryptocurrency to people. You're not forcing it on them. It's a part of the app. It's not the whole app, right? It's a part of the game. It's not the whole game. That's how you start to introduce people. And that's how, in my opinion, you cross the chasm. And finally, once we get to the point where cryptos and banks are interoperable, I think we'll really start to see a much more adoption-heavy ecosystem. One of the things that we did as a company and as a project was invest in a fintech operation last year that enables us to basically become a money transmitter in most of the countries in the world. So we can actually issue international bank account numbers. We can do wire transfers. We can accept and sell crypto. We can build fiat on and off ramps and things like that, as well as enable real world spending through debit cards and things of that nature. It's something that hasn't really been done in crypto. A lot of cryptos are partnered with banks, but they typically don't own them. So it's one of the steps toward interoperability between traditional finance and digital finance that I think is incredibly necessary for us to achieve mass adoption. So that was long-winded. I know that I have plenty of time here left to chat with you guys and take questions. So why don't we do that? Oh wow, a lot more people ended up being here. I haven't seen the screen in a while. So yeah, well, thank you guys for coming. And let's see, do we have any questions?
Yeah, great presentation. Jordan has a question and he's raised his hand. So feel free to jump the audio.
Yeah, on your slide, one of the slides said 19% of people experience hacking on exchanges. With the major exchanges frequently experiencing this, what would alleviate the fears of the users from this happening? It just seems like hackers are typically one step above the devs. 19% is just a large number for someone just getting into it and like potentially getting hacked there.
It is dangerous, you know, and a lot of sometimes the devs themselves are the hackers, right? As we saw with things like Cryptopia. So yeah, it's probably one of the bigger black marks on cryptocurrency, but a lot of it comes down to the fact that most exchanges are centralized services, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of crypto. When crypto is, and when blockchain is more robust as far as user experience is concerned, usability is concerned, decentralized exchanges will be a lot more accessible. And my goal, at least as a project leader, is to create technologies that enable users to continuously retain their keys. That said, there will be custodial solutions, right? Enterprises, and to some extent, small enterprises need custodial solutions. What we need to do is create a more hardened security that is more akin to, you know, the traditional security and OPSEC world. Right now, basically, most exchanges are just like a poorly developed website, you know. So we have some a ways to go before that changes, but it's being worked on. It's pretty promising, I think.
I'd have a follow-up on that. Is it surprising to you that we haven't made more headway in that department? I mean, you look at Mt. Gox, there's in Cryptopia. I mean, look at how many years that separate the Mt. Gox hack and Cryptopia. I mean, that's, you know, 5-6 years. It's interesting, but it's the same issue.
It's correct. And it is shocking. But you see now things like Uniswap, which is a decentralized exchange garnering a ton of usage, more usage than some of the top exchanges. You start to see that decentralized exchanges, that's probably the direction that it will ultimately head. I still think the usability is really not quite there for like the average person, or just, you know, the everyday user, but it is heading in the right direction. These things just take a long time. You know, you think about the internet, we think of the internet as far as, you know, the past 20 years or 30 years, but it took like 30 years to get to the point where it was even used en masse, right? It really didn't blow up till we were kids. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but it seemed like you're around the same age as me. You know, the late 80s and early 90s, it started to actually become something. You started getting the AOL, you know, discs in the mail and stuff, but it was started in the 70s, right? In 1970. So these things just take forever.
Sure. No, it makes sense. But yeah, but because you mentioned that earlier with Cryptopia, and it was the same story with Mt. Gox during the 2014-15, you know, bear market. So that was interesting.
Yeah. It's a shame to see it. You hate to see it, but the best thing you can do is just take personal responsibility for your coins and don't leave them on exchanges.
I posted an article, and if you guys saw this a couple weeks ago, where MicroStrategy is one of the first public companies that's using Bitcoin as their primary cash reserve. Nick, I'd like to get your take on that as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. I actually didn't see the article, unfortunately, but that's really interesting. And it's not the first case of a larger organization utilizing Bitcoin in a in an interesting way like that. I heard about a couple pension funds, I think that was last year, who implemented a pretty large portion of the portfolio into Bitcoin, and I'm sure those those people receiving annuities are pretty happy now. I mean, why not, right? I think we're past the whole point of it being, this illicit thing. It's for terrorism. It's for this and that. I think, that argument has sort of faded away. I just read a package from Deloitte about how blockchain is much more taken much more seriously in the business world now, being used in different facets of trade, all the way from supply chain to finance, as we've seen.
Any other questions for Nick?
I got a question. I don't know. I probably missed this in the presentation. I came a little bit later, but the purpose of the Divi token.
Yeah, so there are a couple, but primarily, and you may have heard me mention toward the end that we purchased a fintech operation. The primary function, or forthcoming function, I should probably say, is to subsidize the fees for transferring money, so that we can bring them toward zero, if not zero. That's the ultimate goal. The concept of paying to use your own money is really absurd to me, and to most people, even some like capitalists feel this way. So yeah, subsidy of fees is a big one, but it's used for a bunch of other stuff. We have a lot of online retailers accepting it, doing trade in it, things like that. So it just functions like a regular currency as well.
The fees, are you talking more like centralized finance, like the dollar transactions, or are you talking like transaction fees like gas and
No, real, traditional finance fees. Okay. So you know how you have to pay wire transfer fees and things of that nature. Even like PayPal taking 3% or whatever of your money.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. Anybody else have anything? Cool. Well, Chris, and Silicon Nexus and Andrew and everybody, I really appreciate you having me. If you do have questions, you can find me on Twitter. I think Chris posted a couple times in the chat, and I'm happy to answer those or just chat. So, thanks again.
Hi, I think Block, do you have a question? Sorry.
I have a quick question. Is there like a certain time when the app is going to be available for Android and iPhone?
Yeah, so you may have seen one of my recent videos. If not, I'll explain again. One of our, basically we've run into some delays just because of everything that's going on in the world, unfortunately. But it's really back on track at this point. We actually haven't even announced this, but I'll tell you now. We just hired a new dev to come on who's built basically 13 different blockchain wallets before. So we're really excited to have him on board, and everything is on track. I don't have an exact date for you yet, but we'll have a roadmap up on our site here in the next basically week.
Okay, well, that's awesome. He's on the team.
Yeah, we're excited about that. It's just the way life goes sometimes, but you just got to roll with it, and we'll get it out as soon as it's ready.
And then real quick, go ahead.
I was just saying, great presentation. Thank you.
No, thank you so much.
Can you give a quick update on Siege Worlds for like the beta?
Yeah, I can ask when the beta is starting. I kind of keep my eye on the development. I'm not a direct part of it by any means, but they are starting to build some videos out and stuff like that. I played an early alpha build of the game, and it's pretty fun. I know right now they're working on some of the animations and making it just a little bit more immersive. But yeah, I'll this Friday, if you follow my live streams on the Divi Project YouTube, I'll get a video for you guys and try to get an update.
Yeah, I just posted in chat the live at 5.
Cool, thanks.
And that's a weekly YouTube video, correct?
Yeah, every Friday, 5 p.m. PST.
Okay. Yeah, I posted Divi Project Twitter. Also, I posted Nick's Twitter as well. So feel free to scroll up and follow him there. Subscribe to them on YouTube, and connect with them on LinkedIn too, as well. So through the attendee list, or you can click the avatar. Because Nick, you do have your LinkedIn attached to it. So thanks for the presentation, Nick. Really appreciate your time jumping on here and doing this.
Yeah, it was real good, Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you just leave? I think so.
Yes.
Oh well. You can ask another question.
All right. We've got next panel at 6 p.m. EST. I'll make an announcement, add some details to that. In the announcements tab, bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that in a little bit. If anybody has any questions, feel free to let us know. One thing real quick, make sure to check out the wing blocks. There's 2 blocks or 2 wings in each main zone. So make sure to check those out. You've got some we've got 2 to 4 different booths that are there for the blockchain game partners. So make sure to check those out. They've got some cool videos in the booths. So actually, I'm going to be moving myself to some of the blocks and checking out some things if you want to follow.
Hey guys, we'll also have another speaker in a little bit, about 30 minutes. Ron Miners, he was community director for The Sims, so he's actually a pretty big deal in the gaming world.
I apologize for missing that.
Yes. Oh, it won't be. He won't have too long to talk, like 20 minutes.
And that will be at 5:15 EST coming up.
Hey Joe, you wanna? We can go into a booth here.
Can you now hear me? Hang on.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think he pushed you out. 1 second.
Hey, Andrew, you here? How's it going?
Ron, can you hear me?
I can. How's it going?
It's going great. You got talking to Chris. You talked to Chris. Know what you need to do?
No, I haven't. That's kind of next on the agenda. I saw him. He was just in here, but I guess he just left.
I would call him.
Yeah.
That way he can just walk you through everything. One thing I would tell you is like when you speak, just stand on the stage up here.
Yeah, get it. I get it. Yeah.
It's just more fun that way.
Right. Well, I guess isn't that where you need to be do screen sharing?
Yes, you can. You can do a screen share, and then that way people can see your slideshow.
Right. Right. Good.
Yeah, and then everyone hears us talking right now out here. Actually, if you come in the booth, they can only hear us if we're in the booth.
Right. Right. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. I was playing around here the other night, so I think I got the basics. So I'm good.
Yeah, excellent. Then you don't even need to call Chris. I think you've got this under control.
Right. And you're doing good. Conference is going well. Yeah.
I mean, I think it feels. Excuse me. Thanks. Yeah, it's crazy. People hear me sneeze. Yeah. So yeah, it's going well. We, I don't know. We tend to have 30 people in during everything.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I will mute myself and call Chris. And I'm supposed to be on at 2:10 for 20 minutes, right?
Yes, please.
Alrighty, sounds like a plan. Thanks, Jared.
You're welcome.
Okay, my mic is doing it now. Can you hear me?
Yes, audio is good.
Ooh, thanks.
Yeah, is it Kaiser?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Chris. Nice to meet you.
Hi, man. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on.
My pleasure. Cool environment there.
All right. Is the first time you jumped in today?
Yes, I just got off work.
All right. Very cool. Thanks for jumping on. A couple things. You can click on the bartender on either side and grab a drink. 3 options for a drink there. And we have a fireside chat starting at 5:15 Eastern Standard, so in about 10 minutes.
A cocktail.
Yeah, they're Derby, Kentucky Derby themed.
Gonna check the room for a bit. So I noticed there's a wing block. What's in the wing block?
The blockchain game partners for the event have presentation booths. So there's video, there's like an MP4 file that's a presentation that you can watch. And there's 2 wing blocks in this area and then another 2 wing blocks in there. I think there's 11 or 12 total booths that have presentations.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I joined this room, before I joined this room, I was talking to John.
Mm-hmm.
Is it so that when you enter a room, the people who are in the other room, you can't hear them or can talk to them anymore?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is a separate audio room in here. Also, if your character is inside of the chat, the green chat area for the 4 tables, that's a separate audio channel as well for each one. So if you and I were in introductions, the introduction high top table, that you could hear, only you and I could hear each other in that area.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. As of now, all of us can hear each other because we're in the main audio zone in this area.
That's a cool future.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool future. Future. Okay, I see you standing there with a drink in your hand. That's you, right? Next to Ron.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Ron. Welcome. Glad you could make it.
Thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.
And there's Jared.
Cheers with a fruity drink.
I'll be AFK for just a few minutes. Be back.
We'll probably have some more people trickle in a bit. So. How's everyone doing today?
Feeling good. I'm thinking about playing The Sims again. It's probably been about a good 12 years.
Does this remind you of it?
Yeah, I mean, when you brought up, this game, and also the speaker here from that was with Sims.
Oh yeah, Ron. Definitely give yourself at least a short introduction for your speech, because people will be impressed with some of the games you've been with. You might be waiting.
No, yeah, I was actually updating. There we go. Dang it, didn't get the X right. Following Andrew's lead on how to list ourselves here. But yeah, actually, hopefully there'll be some fun stories. The talk ended up sort of following, my career in a lot of ways, because these were the various sort of stages I learned things about working with community. So there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some fun stuff. I think. Hope people like it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So
it's been fun to kind of review all this stuff and look for pictures that seemed like they might be, interesting. And I don't like that. There we go. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
get started here in just a moment.
Hey, gas is below 300.
Yay.
All right, guys, we're ready to go. Thanks for jumping in. I know we've got the YouTube live stream going as well. So people that are on YouTube, you guys doing well. We're doing a fireside chat with Ron Miners. Ron is the community director and co-founder of Convergence of Four Dimensions. Ron, appreciate taking the time and jumping on with us.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Let's see, let's turn on the video here. And apologies if I've got the technology a little bit clumsy still. I'm going to do that and that. Did that work?
Yeah, so if you're watching in the audience, you can picture Ron's presentation, or you can full screen it. I think picture in picture is a better option because you can customize how large the presentation is, and it can be on multiple screens if you have multiple screens. So,
but one will probably be enough. Yeah.
right. You can choose whichever screen you want. Right. So, Ron, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you. Chris, you've done a fantastic job putting all this together, and I hope people are having a great time and making some good connections and learning lots of good stuff. It's the virtual setting makes it a little bit awkward to talk to people, but it's absolutely doable, and it's a good way to connect right now, especially. So talking about online community. My career has been online community since about 1997. I started in 1996. Let's see now. Let me make this. Go to the next slide. I started at a company called Empath Interactive, which had launched one of the first interactive game platforms called MPlayer. And at one point, MPlayer had 18 million registrations, which at the time was a fantastic number, and a lot of them were duplicates. I started out in the QA lab, and I don't know how many different registrations I made testing stuff. One of the fun things about MPlayer was at the time there was almost nobody making interactive games where players could interact with each other or play against each other. They were all standalone. So what our engineers did was they would port games. We'd make an agreement with a game company and dig into their engineering and make it so that it could be multiplayer. One of the things about Empath and MPlayer that was really kind of fun was the concept of the lobby. And what you're looking at in the little picture there that I grabbed off of Wikipedia is a game lobby. Somebody has set this up for people to gather to talk about the parameters of the game that they're going to play, ostensibly. At least that was the rationale initially. But we included a voice channel, one of the very first to include a voice channel in an online interaction. And what we found was that so many people were doing so many interesting things with the voice that we sort of moved away after a couple of years did a pivot from interactive games to looking at a model for doing interactive voice stuff, which, there's a whole bunch of people, Skype and so on, that they came after us, and the bandwidth costs were such that we couldn't make it work, but we were the first that was really trying to push that. There is an absolutely, I'm giving a presentation. I like the presentation. I hope you do. The dawn of giving outstanding presentations is a fellow by the name of Brian Moriarty. He's a real early game genius. He's was one of the founders of Empath, and there's his website there, ludix.com, and one of the talks that he gave, and they're all worth listening to. There's a great one about Paul is Dead that I highly recommend. But anyways, is the one that he did about this transition from Empath to Hear Me was Whispering Pines, and it's about all of the stuff that people started doing once they had a voice channel. There were music rooms and DJ sessions and AA meetings and shout rooms and just all kinds of crazy stuff. So well worth checking out if you get a minute. So as a community manager of MPlayer, when I was doing that, moved in from QA, there were a lot more people than me to manage in the community. So what I did was I ramped up the sort of player volunteer organizations. We had sages and mages, and the sages were basically there to help people, and the mages were there to kind of police things. And we had people doing training sessions, and we had rules and what they were supposed to do. And it basically sort of pushing the responsibility down into the community, and it worked beautifully. Because people wanted their community to go well, and there were a lot of people who were willing to kind of put in effort to make that happen. So I went from Hear Me ended up going down. I landed not too long thereafter at Ubisoft, which was porting. At the time, there was a multiplayer version of Myst that they were going to launch, and I was there to work with the Myst community called Uru. And one of the things that's really sort of interesting about Myst is it was real early game, pretty much inaugurated the CD-ROM drive as a necessity in computers and shipped gazillions of copies. It used to be bundled with computers. Beautiful, puzzle-oriented, rich storyline. And at the time, I mean, there were forums and so forth, but a lot of people who were playing Myst would congregate around the water cooler, would congregate with other people. So a lot of the community around Myst was in these one-to-one interactions or several interactions with other people who were playing. I also was community manager on Splinter Cell for Chaos Theory, I think it was. And at that point, community, the first question had been, is online community really community? Can you really form genuine, meaningful interactions online? And of course, I think the answer now is a given. Of course you can. The second sort of stage of that was realizing that people will influence each other in their purchasing decisions and so forth. So it started the whole notion of what once was called word of mouth marketing, eventually sort of got lumped into social media, and social media understood as in many ways a large way of marketing sort of enterprise. And that's sort of one of the pieces I kind of want to highlight as one of my understandings about community that makes it something I can do effectively, is that communities do respond to marketing. They respond to the messages that are there, and if they're at all appealing or interesting, they will tend to adopt them. Let's see, the whole notion of trends or trendsetters, the whole way we we'll go along with kind of what people are doing around us. And I've got an example for you. Okay. All of you who are in the auditorium, let's jump. You hit I guess it's the space bar to jump. Oops. Let me see if I can redo that. Let's go back a slide and try that again. Thank you. Jumping please. Everybody jump. Jump. You're not really there if you're not jumping. Something like that. Anyway, the point being that even in this environment, there are social cues that we get that we can follow, and that we tend to do this as people. We're looking around to see what other people are doing something similar. If you were part of a fraternal organization that started out every meeting standing up on our chairs and saying, "It's great to see you," that's probably what you'd do. If that's not the case, if that's not an established thing, you're probably not going to do it. We look to each other to see kind of what's appropriate. So one of the things I was interested in about this time was Burning Man. And Burning Man is a great little petri dish for learning about community. And community is one of the big sort of factors about the experience there. One of the things that the organization that puts it on tries to highlight and shepherd well. And I think they've actually probably done a pretty good job. Let's see. So one of the things I did early on at Burning Man, I volunteered to work at Media Mecca. And there's actually footage of one of my first attending a meeting. Was a talk given by the founder, Larry Harvey. And I think it's in the movie Sparks, which has that session, some of the footage that the other camera person there took. And one of the things that Larry talked about that night was how community can influence behavior and how our expectations can influence what we're doing and whether or not it's appropriate. And the story he told, and it's true, because I worked at Media Mecca, you'd see these reporters come in, and a lot of what was kept Burning Man going at the time was good press. And this was in the face of, pushback from the Bureau of Land Management and, Washoe County and state of Nevada, but we were getting lots and lots of good press. And one of the reasons was that these reporters would come in to, talk about this crazy event. And I just pulled this picture off. It's not an art installation, I know, but you can see that it sort of is there. One of the things that the art installation does is it prompts interactions between people who don't know each other. Can say, "Oh, look, you can see that from over here," or "Help me up," or "Wow, isn't this thing amazing?" and have these kind of connections around it. But so what would happen is these reporters would come in and they'd have their khakis and their belts full of equipment and their Aussie hats, and they'd been all over the world. They covered wars and natural disasters and all these terrific things, and very jaded. Here they are at this crazy event. And they'd come back, and they checked into Media Mecca to, because it was we tracked who was doing journalism there, they came in and they would, a couple days later, and they'd be in a tutu, and nothing else except their shorts and they still had their equipment belt. And the thing was that once they'd gotten into what the community was about, lots of genuineness, no spectating. No spectators was one of the sort of cliches, but this whole sort of set of notions, radical inclusivity, right? The notion that anybody you meet, they're going to be a good person. You can talk to them, including the cops. That was a real big thing. It's like, no, they're people too. They're doing their job. You don't have to. This is not a fight. Let's get along. And the reporters would pick this up and start playing it back. And somewhere along the line, the event started growing enough that initially what had happened is you'd learn about Burning Man either being there or through word of mouth, right? More social stuff. You'd hear about it, stories from your friends and so forth, and say, oh, you got to come see this thing. And what happened was it was growing enough that was starting to break down. There were too many new people. So I dropped an email to Larry and said, hey, this is what's going on. I think that, you need to think about some way of communicating what it's about and prepping people, setting their expectations appropriately. And shortly thereafter came the 10 principles, which are sort of some of the core notions of what the experience is about, able to communicate. So again, it's that messaging that helps set what people's expectations are and how they're going to see it and interpret it and act in the world. Similarly, there was a talk right about then at one of the game conferences by the Disney folks on Toontown. And I don't know, some of you may be young enough to have played Toontown. It was a great game. It was really fun. And it was done by Disney for kids. So they wanted to make sure that there wasn't any bad language, people weren't sharing information they shouldn't, all that good stuff. So what they had done was they'd set up, rather than have a chat window, they had a menu. And you can pick various words, hello, how are you, something like that. But it was all sort of limited to be a positive experience. And these folks during the talk from Disney said that they would get emails from folks who had come in to disrupt it and be trolls. And these emails would say, I came in to mess things up, but I had such a good time that now I'm a big fan and have a great time there. And again, it's sort of the way they had the chat system set up, it guided the participants into a positive experience, and they had a positive experience, and it made a difference. So when I was at Ubisoft working with the Myst community in Uru, there are a couple of things that are key in an MMO that create longevity. And one of them is one of the things that World of Warcraft and a bunch of others do really well, which is what I ended up calling collaborative achievement, small groups taking on big challenges. And the reason that that's important is because past a certain point, the player will have exhausted the content that's been created for them and will basically need to be, that if you can create content that the community creates for itself, then the world persists and stays interesting. And that was kind of one of the problems, unfortunately, with Uru, was that the content had been based on a single person, game, where there were these beautiful, lavish, very clever puzzles. And it created this whole beautiful world with lots of beautiful, lavish, clever puzzles. But that's not sort of, once you've done them, there's not a lot of ways that becomes content generated by the community for each other. So it wound up sort of seeming like it would not last. Mind you, the community has taken over, and there is a new server going now, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's absolutely fantastic. It's gorgeous. And the community that that had been formed around Myst originally in the forums and so forth, is still persisting. They just had a Mysterium, and I believe there's going to be a documentary on Myst coming up. They're working on it now. Anyway, when I came in to work on Uru, one of the things that was happening was that there were a bunch of people who had been there, really core fans, and there was a community of newer folks coming in who didn't know everybody, and especially in the world of Uru, it's a virtual world, and you're interacting, and what do you do? How does it work, and so forth. And what was starting to happen is people would hang out where new people came in and say hello and introduce themselves. So what I did was I sort of codified that. I created a guild of greeters, and the notion was, you sign up, and I put together the principles of behavior and the kind of rationale and the raison d'etre of why we're doing this, to be really sort of inspiring, and to really sort of make it clear, what kind of conversations to have, in a way to create an environment where people would interact one-on-one on an ongoing basis in 4 brief times. And it was actually very successful, probably at some level the most, or one of the most persistently engaging. I mean, the worlds are gorgeous, the puzzles are beautiful, you can do them together, but it was one of the, engaging roles. You could meet new people. You can meet constantly new people and help them. And the Guild of Greeters is still around. I don't know how active they are anymore. I kind of wandered off, but the site is still there. There's lots of content. It turned out to be something that was really rewarding for people. They all did it. I gave it a little push at the beginning, but yeah, it was very successful. Okay, so I went from there to a company called My Hollywood, another startup, and it happened to be right around a certain economic crunch, so it didn't get off the ground, which is too bad. It was going to be basically a set of MMOs for mainstream women, and built around fashion and celebrity and stuff like that. And so instead of becoming a bigger, badder mage or whatever, you became a celeb. And I was brought in as director of community to work both sort of with the community directly and community managers, but also to create, help have input into the structure of the game, so that there would be, the kind of interaction that the game would structure, the kinds of interactions that were rewarding and would create content and positive experiences for people. An example of this in WoW, I use WoW, is the platforms for blimps from one continent to the other. And one of the core sort of notions about doing this is, okay, so you've got 2 different continents, you want to get to the other one, and you can press a button and the different map loads and you're there. But what the designers did was they created this system of blimps, and the blimps ran on a schedule, and it's about 5 minutes a piece. But what that means is that you're waiting around for, some period of time with other people. And it, I think, was an intention, my guess, it's an intention, the intention was that people would form interactions and kind of, create content that way. I think that has a big problem. It's too intentional. It's too clear. Okay, we're supposed to talk now. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes you do interesting things. But that intentionality sort of, I think, makes it feel less genuine, and I don't think it was really successful. One other thing that Blizzard did well, though, and I think this is intentional, I'm not really clear, the screenshot here is of one of the dungeon areas. But my son showed me this, and what he had found, I think he found a YouTuber who was talking about this and learned how to do it. My son's 13 now, so I don't think he did this. But anyway, there are scenes that block off areas of the world where you're not supposed to go, where there isn't content, and in these instance dungeons, what happens is you can, if you know just the right places to go, you can get off into the landscape of the world without any of the interactions, and that's what this is. There's a floating city there, which he managed to figure out a way to get up to, and there's this whole landscape, this whole beautiful, developed landscape that you're not supposed to go to theoretically. I think that it's actually an intention. It's a little sort of Easter egg almost, or hidden content, so that some players who take that challenge can find it. It becomes a way for people to really push at the game and then communicate that to others. And I think that, on the other hand, is very successful. Another one is in WoW dungeon runs, where if there's a younger player who's starting a new toon, a more advanced player they pair together in one of these dungeons to get them some better gear or whatever. And so it becomes this sort of reciprocity operation where the more advanced player, the higher level player, is doing the younger one a favor, and sharing this experience, and then it creates this impetus for return favor when the roles are reversed and so forth. Anyway, Sims. So when I started, there were 14 million fans, likes at the time on Facebook, and the community was not happy. The view was that EA just wanted the money. They didn't care about the community. They didn't care about the game. The game was broken in several ways. There were bugs all over the place. Community rules generally weren't enforced, and there were way too many ads, especially for products, cross-marketing that weren't really appropriate. I mean, something like maybe Plants vs. Zombies. It's fun. It's a casual game. Maybe that's appropriate for a Sims audience, but Madden games might not be, right? So the community resented the fact that all of this stuff that they weren't interested in was being pushed out. So what we did, my team, was number one, we pushed back on the number of ads and cut it down heavily. The marketing folks didn't like that, but that's okay. Community did. We personalized the team, and I would say that this is really kind of the key to the whole thing. But all of this is really kind of important. But anyway, we personalized the team. We changed the impression of the community from EA is this money grubbing corporation that doesn't care about people, and instead put in place the people who are actually working on the game, and they loved The Sims as much as the community did. And that communicated, so the community could absolutely connect to that and appreciate that. And in addition, here were these, in the world of fandom, celebrities who are interacting with them and, taking time to chat with them or answering their questions or whatever, including some of the developers, which, and you kind of have to keep an eye on that to make sure that they handle it well. But it was a big win, and it really sort of changed the understanding of the community about who they were talking to. We responded to bug reports and pushed them internally and got some fixes, and not everything we wanted, but our voices helped raise the visibility of some of these things and again, the community was grateful. We created or really sort of highlighted community engagement content, stuff that was fun, games and puzzles, but also the community. There was, I don't know, it's probably still there. There was a fashion magazine that some people were putting out every quarter, and lots and lots of really, really fun stuff that the community was doing, and we helped, highlight that and show our appreciation for it. We enforced rules when they got broken, got better about kind of, talking to people who were kind of acting out of line. And this is another one that I think is really sort of key. If there was somebody who's a community leader who's doing the kind of stuff that really makes a healthy community, talk to them, recognize them, appreciate them, give them your encouragement, and let them know that you got their back. And also, if possible, make it visible to the community that you think that what they're doing is great, because the community is looking for input about how to gain status and be successful in this social setting, the way we do. It's what we do. That was actually one of the pieces I meant to kind of highlight at the beginning of this, that initially it seemed the question was, is online community real? And it is. We know that now. It's not a question. A lot of these interactions are very, very meaningful. And what you draw out of that is that, okay, well, we can look to the kind of stuff that people do in groups as information about the kinds of stuff we do online, and learn from that and use that to kind of help guide communities in positive ways. So rules, blockchain and rules. One of the things that is a huge advantage of blockchain is it's got very stringent rules. It's very strict. You're absolutely, it's secure and safe. And those constraints and safety measures are there because people will take advantage of things if they can, or at least some people will. So even though people in a community will generally want to play by the rules, will want to help each other, will want to be collaborative to make things successful, there are people who will try to take advantage of that, will put their own interests above first and foremost, even at the expense of others. And when you're setting up a system of rules for a community, you need to be able to see that, and you need to be able to say, okay, you need to stop doing that, or even bounce them, exclude them. So one of my favorite examples, and I'm talking about how communities will adopt the behaviors of others and look for guidance as what's appropriate. I went down to Blizzard at one point to have lunch with one of the Burning Man founders, with Rob Pardo, who was at the time head of Blizzard. And one of the things he said, which I thought was really interesting, was that he didn't know why the WoW community was so unruly and sort of disruptive. And I had seen this statue or one like it, visiting the campus, and it was abundantly clear to me, these are the messages that you're putting into the community. WoW has a whole lot of, those other players are bad guys. It's a two-faction thing, but it's framed in such a way that's sort of unbridled aggression. And, the community is absolutely reflecting that. The other thing about rules in a community is the messages have to be on target. Messages about that would be appropriate for a WoW community would not at all be appropriate for an Uru community, or the messages about Madden sports weren't appropriate for The Sims. You need to be paying attention. You need to be sort of responsive to that. One of the things I mentioned before, when people come into a community, they're looking for how to be successful in it. And if you're guiding that community, if you're setting it up, having clear pathways, make it clear, act respectfully, be prepared to listen, help people, have a good time. Don't be talking smack or shading others or whatever. And people will adopt that, because for most people, they're looking for what's appropriate behavior. How do I do this in a way that the community supports and will appreciate? And if that's the standard you set, that's what's going to happen. Okay, let's see. So this kind of brings another sort of central thesis, is that to a large extent, communities will police themselves. And I saw that happen I've seen that happen in all the communities I worked on. If you give them a chance, communities will set the standards for what is appropriate behavior and be quite active in maintaining that. Now, the problem is, there are two potential problems with that. One is, if you're not guiding it strongly, you're either going to get a situation where there's dissension, right, where factions fighting over what's the best way to do things, or you're going to get a situation where people who are the loudest and the meanest, the bullies and the trolls and the people who just basically want to mess with things, that they'll take over, because there's not because they're the ones who are willing to be the most ruthless about aggregating power to themselves. So if you thankfully in a community, in a game or whatever situation that you're managing, you have the rules. You can say, no, this is not appropriate, not acceptable. As long as there's clear rules, you can say, yeah, you need to stop doing that, and make it stick. Again, in the community, you're the one who sets the rules. How do you set good community rules? Start with listening. Who's your community? What are they interested in? And by your listening, they're going to be, gaining respect for you that you have their interest at heart. So here's some guidelines I put together for community management. I think they're probably pretty good. First thing is, be a person, not a company. Show that you're, interacting on a personal basis with them. Listen to their grievances, and a lot of times that information is going to be key. Not only in terms of bugs or whatever, but where you're making missteps. Do what you can to address any issues that are communicated to you. Surface them internally. Make clear rules and enforce them, which can be tough, but it can also mean one of my really good friends in the MIST community was initially started out as kind of a troublemaker. He was creating some intentionally not creating some conflict and so forth. But I started talking to him and realized really sharp guy. And once he understood that he was being taken seriously, he became one of the biggest supporters of the community, helped a lot of people with technical issues and stuff like that. So, it can, a lot of times it can just, start out with talking to somebody. Exhibit the best qualities you want to see yourself, don't be gossiping or, being scornful of others or any of that stuff, because that'll breed. People are looking to you to see what, how to work in this community. Give recognition and status markers to good community leaders, give them your support, and talk straight as much as possible. Sometimes, let's see, you'll need to put things in, you'll need to delay announcements, you'll, need to, not tell the whole story. But the flip side of that is that one of, I think, the most valuable lessons I learned is in community management is there's this funny kind of principle where a community, if things really go south and you stand in there, that will gain you more respect than when you're just kind of passing along pleasant messages from marketing. And my example is with the Uru community, which ended up not launching, although again, I said this, the community has a server now. But when Ubisoft cut it off, the community hated it. And there was a lot of sort of, this is all Ubisoft being greedy. And one of the messages that we put out there was that, hey, this is the last thing on earth we wanted to do. People are losing their jobs. This has been something people have been working on for months. And communicating the message that it affected us in a very profound way, too. So, we couldn't help it. There's nothing we could do. But communicating in a direct and straight manner, made a big difference. All right, so I think that's it. Do we, Chris, you still here?
I am. Yes, I am here.
Do we have? I haven't been checking time. Do we have time for questions, or should we wrap it up?
I've got maybe 2 minutes. If somebody has a question for Ron, I appreciate the presentation.
Oh, thank you. That's really a pleasure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Thank you.
That was a phenomenal presentation. All the different aspects of building a community. It's interesting because I think the formula hasn't really changed.
I think you're right. Absolutely so. Yeah. Well, and I think that was one of the things I was trying to say. As people, we have these social ways that we work together, and have for hundreds of years or thousands of years or whatever, and that translates online. So,
All right. Sorry.
You want to call for questions? Why don't you do that if there are any questions?
I just had one. How have you dealt with like a online community mob? Like we see all these social community mobs nowadays on Twitter and things like that. How would you deal with a situation like that in one of your own gaming communities?
Let's see. Basically sort of the same stuff. Twitter's let's see, some of the bigger communities are kind of harder to deal with. There's a lot of difference between communities that are happening in your own pond, like a Discord channel or something like that, and communities that are out in the wild, as it were. What I would say was basically, I think, all you can do or what you can do is the same stuff. Try and be straight with people. Try and, demonstrate to the people that are paying attention that it's worthwhile to be a member of the community that you're trying to guide. That it's that there's value there, and ideally, to a large extent, hopefully, the community will become your advocates. So on some level, one of the things that I think can happen that's really what you're aiming for is enough of a good relationship so that people will stand up for their community to people who are trying to tear it down. Does that answer your question, Jared?
Absolutely.
Great
question. Pete had a quick question. Pete's hands up.
Hey, Ron. Great presentation. Really appreciate the data. It's super valuable. My question was more along the lines of the aspects of the community where, you gave an example about World of Warcraft and the players, having this aberrant behavior. I'd just love your thoughts on, aside from just having some kind of ban feature where we're just, canceling individuals for their behaviors, have you thought about what kind of other remediation can be done, either built into the platform that, and I have some thoughts on it, but I would love your view as to how we can guide people to the benefits of quality human interaction versus just, toxifying an environment.
Absolutely. I think, it basically, a couple things. One is if there are people who have a legitimate grievance, if you're talking to somebody and there is an issue there that they're rightfully PO'd about, you can learn about that and maybe sort of address that. And in general, just the interacting with you directly may be enough to turn some people around. And then there's sort of halfway measures like timed, you're suspended for a week or something like that. I almost put this in the talk, and it's an interesting thing. And what it is that when I was at Empire, we talked about a global mute is what it was. And the notion was that we would set the technology so that we could take some players who were, just spewing, bad-mouthing stuff. And rather than just kind of keep them from creating more and more accounts, banning an account, and they create another one, what we do is their client would show that they were texting and saying things, but it wouldn't show up on anybody else's. So they thought that they were still talking to people, but nobody else saw it. and we never actually did it there, but I did at a later company. And it throws you. I mean, we got people who were panic stricken, just really, really disturbed that nobody seemed to be listening to them anymore, and nobody would respond to them and what was going on. I mean, it was really overkill in a lot of ways. But your question kind of brought that to mind, and I thought I'd mention it. And if nothing else, it's a really good example of how important, others are to us. If we think that nobody's ever, responding to anything we say, it bugs us big time. So.
Hey, I had a follow-up on Jared's question. Has there ever been a time for you where you thought it was appropriate to temporarily disable any live chats, such as if something negative was going on and there was just too much brigading? Has there ever been, or is there any case to temporarily disable chats?
I would say there could well be. I've never had to. A lot of the technology I was working with, when I was sort of more active, was forums and to some extent, Facebook and some of the newer stuff with the Twitter and some of the more synchronous immediate communications I haven't done. But that said, I think the same stuff still applies. I mean, the main thing you want the community to know is, well, you're hearing them, you got their back, You're doing what you can. You'll continue to, even if it's bad news, or especially if it's bad news. But that said, if something happens that's sufficiently, inflammatory, that it's not going to be good for people to be venting for a while. I'd say, hey, listen, guys, this is awful news. We all need to calm down about this before we can figure out how to move forward together. Some message like that. I'm going to shut things down for a day or something. Let our heads cool off a bit. I'll be here, and we'll be back on soon. But and although conversely, one of the other titles for community managers, a meat shield. When things are going south, you're on the front lines, and there's probably at least some value to the community having a chance to complain to somebody, to be in there and just soaking some of it up, because at least that way they'll know that they've been heard, something like that.
Okay, thanks.
Ron, thanks again for your time, for jumping on and presenting this information. I think it was really valuable. Because even if you're not directly managing a community, you're still a part of a community, right? So I think
Absolutely.
I think it's
Absolutely.
a great. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Chris and everybody, thanks so much. Have a great conference, and I'm happy to have been able to contribute to it.
And Ron, best way to get in touch with you is on LinkedIn. Is that a good way? I did post your LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, that is in chat. So make sure to connect with Ron. It's in the chat, bottom right-hand corner.
There's my Gmail address is there. RonMiners@gmail will reach me too. So all good.
All right, I will post that as well. So make sure to connect with Ron. Ron, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks all. Have a good conference. Thank you, Andrew. I think. Thank you. Have a good conference all.
Thanks, sir.
Sure.
It was great, Ron. Thank you.
Yeah, make sure to snag Ron into a private chat when you walk by his avatar. So just click on him and hit that chat bubble and have a conversation. So, all right. We're going to give a few minutes. Are we good with the 6:15 start or 6:10 start EST for this next panel? Or are you just ready to roll? Okay. I just didn't know what we wanted to do. Okay. Okay. I want to say 6:05 p.m. EST. I'm going to throw it out here to announcement.
Where are the seats for the panelists? Where's the seats for the panelists? It's going to be tough standing up for.
Yeah. A little teaser, that's coming, at some point.
I cannot right now. It's not available.
In main zone.
Yes.
So unfortunately, everyone's stuck looking at two of the ugliest bunch of guys, me and Andrew. Oh man.
I did see Jason just a minute ago.
Yeah, I saw.
Okay.
I saw him.
Okay, Pete's joining us in video. Anybody else is welcome to join as well, but we'll give him a minute. See.
It's great. Giving me some time to hammer out some emails. What the email?
All right. I think there's Jason. I see him. He's coming.
Oh, Oh, I know what
he's
time
sprinting.
it is.
He's sprinting.
I gotta go get some bourbon. See, Andrew. It looked like Andrew was reaching for his drink. I'm gonna have to go compliment that.
It's a derby
Be right
event.
back, fellas. Yeah.
There's
Be right back.
Jason.
Gotta go
All
get
right.
some bourbon.
Okay. Maybe it's just me that hears that video behind me, but it's pretty loud.
No, I hear it too.
Oh, okay. I'll let it finish. Oh, I'm controlling that. I'm sorry. Wow. If I clicked on that, everybody, and they weren't understanding why they were looking at it, my apologies. Oh, okay. Oh, got it. It's just from my perspective. Got it. Oh. Oh. Yeah, I did that. I see him right here. Yeah, I saw him fly through the window up there. It happened to me.
Yeah, I was doing
It the first time I walked in. Okay. Well, sweet. It looks like we have everybody here. We have Brad, Jason, and Andrew. We're waiting. We were going to give it another 10 minutes, or are we going to start now? Okay, cool. Let's go. All right. Well, the idea of a token-based investment fund is something that many probably have dreamed of, thought of, or maybe it's a new thought altogether. But the people here on the stage are pioneering that idea and have various backgrounds all in the investment and entrepreneurial side of things. Andrew Prell being our CEO of Silicon Nexus, Jason Charles coming in here helping to create the one of the biggest masterminds to the piece of an investment fund for Silicon Nexus, and Brad Yasser with a strong investment background with Beyond and Silicon Nexus. So we'll go ahead and get the panel discussion started. First, by understanding a little bit about a token-based investment fund from the perspective of Silicon Nexus. What does that look like? What is it? Jason Charles is going to take lead on that. Jason, you want to share with us what that is? Sure. Okay. Well, how about this, Andrew? Do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your background? Cool. Yeah. Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Have done extensive projects from a couple of different industries. Got a tequila company that we've created that's kind of a luxury sipping tequila, and owned restaurants and really, but specifically in tech. I have worked on building the first robo-advisor financial planning software. Really got into blockchain around 2010, started investing in Bitcoin, did fairly well with that. been spending the last 6 or so years working in cybersecurity as well, mostly on the finance side, but predominantly the experience that's really applicable to today is through Adela Investment. And we started in 2016, quant trading, built 4 algorithms, had over 5,000, 6,000% growth. Got into mining operations, opened some facilities in about 6 different states, and really worked on creating limited partnerships where investors could safely rely on others to help them manage their assets in digital currencies. And so through my experience, working with Andrew, really kind of fell in love with this project, with the team. I mean, they've got so many wonderful people that they've brought together. Brad, everyone on stage today is just an exceptional person, and really glad to be part of the team. And I'll get more into this specific project and where we're taking it and where it is.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. Next, we have Brad. Brad, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background in investing started as an angel investor. That was a while ago, a couple of decades now. And then I got introduced to Bitcoin in 2009, and that was love at first sight. I mean, I was running this 286 computer to solve for SETI projects on the side, and I switched it to Bitcoin mining because at that time you could mine Bitcoin on a 286 PC, and the rest is history. Kept up with all things crypto. I've been a gamer since I was 6 years old. I still keep the letter I got from Atari's founders for finishing River Raid. One of the first people in the world to do it, and to this day I love games. Obviously, I'm in crypto. Been investing actively in early stage technology businesses, and between the crypto projects that I've supported, as well as more traditional technology projects, I have over 200 investments. Really excited about the Convergence project and the structure, the fund structure, because that is the future. That's how we're going to create smaller economic paradigms that support a specific goal and a specific group of businesses and people. And that's me in a nutshell. Active investor. I love the idea. Happy to be here.
Very cool. Happy to have you. Thanks for giving us a little taste of what's to come. Let's get an understanding a little bit about the this token investment fund that Convergence has.
All right. Sure. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and or we can definitely make it interactive as well. But Andrew has pulled up the the kind of the introduction. We have a kind of a brief presentation today about how we've structured everything, the benefits of it, and really the ease of kind of just the highlights of what he just went over. Andrew, if you want to go on to the next slide, you can. So really, I'm trying to see the full screen here. Hold on. I'm doing the same thing. Yeah, I am. So, really, the whole point, as you mentioned, was to really kind of enhance the lessons learned from the past. And so convergence is really kind of building an ecosystem that, brings not only a centralized platform that gamers and technologists can build off of, but it provides a player acquisition engine which drives consumers to these entities. And so the fund is essentially funded with Droid tokens, which can be used for the right organizations to foster growth, to provide marketing, really kind of a number of different utilizations. I mean, it's designed to be a stable coin. So if they're selling it to their ecosystem, providing as a reward system, everyone's kind of familiar with how tokens are used in a lot of mobile games and other games as well. So the idea is to really build the community around that. And the funds are set up to where a VC or fund manager can come in. You may have an existing portfolio, and so you can take these tokens and actually invest in them just like you would with regular cash. But it gives them another tool that maybe they didn't have before. And a lot of the discussions we've had, some folks, maybe have some guys, some teams that aren't quite ready for the VC. They're a little early stage, and so this can provide a means for them to market tokens to their community, to build awareness, to help drive their program, and actually give them liquidity where they can build and get to a point where they're appropriate to be funded by a VC. Now, again, this slide here talks about the mutual success, and that's really what we're looking for. We want to, help developers in this time, but we also want to extend our tokens beyond our normal network and increase their utilization. And I think you'll have to change the slide for me, Andrew. Perfect. All right. So the control of funds, again, once someone comes in and they determine that they'd like to partner with us, we actually give them full control of the fund. And what that means is that they have to focus on certain type of technologies, anything that will improve our ecosystem, games, esports, Internet of Things, AI. For me, I think the ideal thing would be a game developing group or an incubator. Those are some great things for us. But again, the whole ecosystem is really designed to help people create content. As we move further through this, you'll see some additional notes here. I'm sorry, about the benefits of being on the platform. And then this does have an aspect of blockchain to it, which essentially is going to provide for more secure transactions. And, being able to trade merchandise and utilize this system is much more efficient. You actually save money by coming on the platform and utilizing it internally as well. Next slide, please. Sure. So part of the way that we partner with folks is really to look at, how can we increase your ROI? And so if you look at your current portfolio, are there any companies, is there anyone that could utilize additional liquidity? They can take the tokens, they can liquidate them. We do have certain parameters around that. Do they need a reward system? Is there a way that they need to use marketing to engage with their community? Is this a way that they could encourage people to participate more, to earn these tokens, to derive more interest? That's all things that we can work with you on that. Now, we want you to come in and actually take control. You'll maintain control and essentially be able to carve out additional diversification. This is a blockchain. It doesn't have to necessarily be blockchain companies, but you are using that token. So if you're looking for a way to invest in blockchain, this gives you an opportunity to market to your angel investors or to the accredited investors that you're working with, to say, we've got a digital asset here that provides additional diversification and minimizes your risk in the market. And then on top of that, we're basically bringing the consumer to you. And if you think of the information age that we're in, everyone who participates on our platform, all the consumers from the multiple avenues that we have, we're able to gain their data, we're able to learn their habits, and we're able to share that information with everyone who's in our program, so they can in turn enhance their marketing, enhance their games, enhance their projects, and it's kind of a win-win for everyone. Next slide, please. So the fund process, we wanted to make it, really as simple as possible. If you're using current term sheets, current investment selection process, you can continue to do that. It's really just a matter of implementing the Droid token fund into that process. Now we do have, we take your initial agreement, your term sheet, we customize it, adding in some terminology built around the token. And once it's been agreed upon, then we deploy the investment tokens. And so now you have the ability to invest into companies directly with the tokens. Again, you're still going to manage these companies. You're going to do what you do. You're going to be an amazing mentor, and you're going to leverage your relationships. And these companies have to hit milestones to obtain additional tokens. And so we structured it in something that's a little bit familiar as well. Well, we did the 2 and 20, but obviously with the fund already being capitalized, 200 million in assets, there's no way we can go ahead and just pay you for that and do nothing. So really the idea there is that the 2 and 20 is based upon any investments that you do. So you have full control of the fund, you're funding the companies, you have an existing portfolio. You take the assets, you invest in those companies, and whatever you invest, then you're paid the 2% annual on that investment. If there is a successful exit, if there is significant growth in the company, a buyout, you get the 20% carry. And again, we do have, these are all gamers here, so they built in a great gaming system and with bonus opportunities as well for everyone who participates in this system. Next slide, please. So this really just kind of iterates this, at the 2 and 20% with the bonus, it could equate to essentially 4% and 30% the carry. And what we're looking for is really for people to have skin in the game. You take an initial investment of $4 million that you will recoup in tokens. You take your assets, you put them in, you purchase the Droid token, we put it in a public address. And what that means is everyone can see that you're actively holding the tokens, that you purchase those tokens. What we do with Dash is we're taking half of that, and we're actually taking and using it for additional liquidity on the blockchain to be able to enable people to liquidate the tokens on a multitude of exchanges. We're also utilizing Bancor, which, if you're not familiar, just basically gives us a larger breadth and scope to support the scalability of the token. Additional benefit, as I mentioned before, is we have the player acquisition engine, which is something that it really drives traffic. It's a solution to onboard players. So if you can consider, all the assets, all the money that you spend in trying to get people's attention, this is essentially a tool that will bring that to you. And so the idea is that everyone saves time. We're driving traffic to the platform that you can utilize their data. You can obtain them as a client, as a consumer, and then as a fund manager, you're not having to go and raise capital. You're not having to say, okay, we're shutting down next month. Let's get investments in while we can. And again, as you know, markets are not always I guess friendly to bring in capital, and so in times when it's hard to bring in capital, well, you have to spend a lot more effort. Well, in this instance, you don't. You've already got a fund that essentially is $200 million. So let me explain. So you put in $4 million, it's set aside, you get access. You can subsequently invest into individual companies. So if you're thinking about in terms of digital assets, how it works is essentially you take the digital assets and then you can invest into those other companies. And we can get into more specifics later, but just go into the next slide. Oh, no worries. Yeah. So essentially, you get to invest $4 million and you get access to $200 million, and then from that, it's a way to be fully diversified. So you set aside the $4 million. If you ever exit the fund, if you give up control of the fund, you're able to take those initial tokens and liquidate them or use them in your existing portfolio. But it's really essentially a way that you can advertise that you're investing in blockchain. You don't have to, but it would be a way that you could essentially market that if that's something you chose to do. So really, it's you control the funds. You're in charge of the milestones. We have a team that's set up that will help manage a dashboard, which essentially shows all the tokens. Everything's fully transparent. If you have companies that are in stealth, that's fine. We're going to be sending the tokens to them to wallet addresses, and you'll be able to see where they're being used, how often they're being withdrawn, and you'll be in charge of that process. The other reward that we really look at is to really accelerate the growth of these companies. And again, I'm just going to reiterate some of these points over and over, just because I really want you to understand that if you give companies additional liquidity, if you give them additional tools for marketing, and you send them consumers and data, the likelihood of their success is going to greatly increase. And you also have our team as well. We're here to help facilitate those transfers. You have control. If they were approved, they meet the requirements to help improve the ecosystem, then it's a quick process. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go on to you can go on the next slide. So, what is backing the stable coin? What gives it strength? Those are all questions that I typically hear. And so really it's 20% of the profits that are coming in from the Prize Nexus. We have the Trade Binder app, the marketplace. We have game sales, esporting events. I mean, every time someone new comes on the platform and the ecosystem, it strengthens everything. When we have places with gaming centers, such as Dave and Buster's, we have a kiosk located in centers. And really, if you can understand the past, if you go to these arcades, you go to these gaming centers, and I always say skee ball. I used to love that, and would get all these tickets, and I'd trade my tickets in. I'd get a game, or a crappy toy is the easiest thing to explain. I would take all these tokens that I'd won, and I'd get the toy, and then I'd lose it a week later. Well, what happens is we found a better way to do it. Instead of these centers having to hold all of these stuffed animals and rubber hands or whatever, we gave them digital assets. So now you have a game, you win a skin, you have, if you've got anybody that plays Fortnite or Roblox, where you can get, you can buy hats or whatever. Well, that's the thing. That's what everybody wants. They want to have the latest shirt. They want to buy the special limited edition item for their game, for their character. I mean, everyone today, selected their casual attire or their formal attire and customize. And everyone wants to do that with their avatars. Well, we provide a means where those assets can be transferred digitally, so that it drives the consumer, to that game. And so that's part of the strength that we have. Again, the partners we have a tremendous list of contract people all around the world that we're working with. And essentially every time we add another arcade, a family entertainment center, theme parks, publisher, media, equipment manufacturers. I mean, anyone who's using the token for a reward, or for money, with their consumers, will essentially help strengthen it. As we can scale, the token will scale with that. Just as easy. Okay, sure. Yep. No, good. Well, yeah. So let's get. I'd like to hear from Brad as well, if we can, and Brady, I'd let you jump in, and if you've got any specific questions for us as well. But Brad, what has been your experience with the team, and seeing the amazing growth that they've had in their games? I mean, what's been your insight?
I think the idea of growing an ecosystem by investing in its native currency has been around and has been successful before. There were mothers creating these local currencies just to exchange goods and services in the neighborhood amongst themselves. I'm trying to remember the name, but I'm drawing a blank. And this is akin to that, but in a global scale, because we're bringing all the gaming communities, both gamers as well as producers of content together with the Convergence ecosystem. So I think my experience has been phenomenal with the team, because I look up to Andrew as someone who grew this industry from the beginning and whose games I actually played as a gamer. But aside from that, I think the future he envisioned with Silicon Nexus is a fantastic one, because it actually keeps the value creation and the incentives within the community. I was, listening to your presentation, and of course I've seen that before, and just thinking how circular the economic empowerment model is, and how impressive that is. Because if you invested tokens in a new gaming business, you're giving them an opportunity to pay their developers and resources with those tokens. And then you're giving those people who now are a part of the community, and they may be gamers and they may already know about our ecosystem, or they may just be employees of that business, but now they have an opportunity to use those tokens. Of course, you can't buy food with droids yet, so there's going to be some Absolutely. But because it's COVID and everything is virtual, I was going to get to that. But, right now you can't, use droids on Uber Eats or food delivery or something like that. But short of that output of value from our ecosystem, most of it can be kept inside. Because if the developers want to play a game or get a new skin in a different game that they're just consumers of, they can use those droids. And now those games have captured the economic value, and they can use those droids to exchange for whatever resources, services they need. And now we're keeping all the value creation in our gaming ecosystem, without, just like the example of Xbox and Halo, most of the Halo's value creation went into outside of the ecosystem and went into other pockets. The gamers really didn't benefit from that value creation. Neither did the rest of the portfolio companies, just like it was shown in that graphic. And that really stuck with me. I thought this is the right way to grow a gaming community and ecosystem and keep most of the value within it, because there's going to be circular economies, and it's going to support all the stakeholders, not just the winners or the active users of the token.
Cool. So, one of the things that people may be wondering is why go this route? I mean, I know we've highlighted some of those ideas and reasons, but just to boil it down in a very simple way, why is it necessary at this time to focus on a token-based fund opposed to any other fund out there?
Well, yeah, one thing, Brady, as well, I've always considered this too. If you look at, mobile games now, you can play online and you're playing with someone from Australia, from England, from Ohio or wherever. And instead of having to, use multiple currencies, the fiat from their countries, you can have one token that's used across the board and it has the same value. And I think convergence, it brings in multiple players that, you can cross platforms. Before things were kind of in silos. And the thing that they've really have done that's great is they're cross platform. And so being able to move assets and trade assets securely, I think that's a great advantage as well.
That's really cool. So the ability to eliminate the need for foreign currency trade between different gamers in a number of different games in the gaming community. That's cool. Brad, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there aren't a lot of instances where gamers are trying to do a currency conversion. At least I'm not aware of that. But having a uniform measuring unit always helps because everyone, then converts it to their own local currency and understands the value. But as far as empowering and creating liquidity, I think it's essential to have a shared unit of value that can pass through. And that's a completely separate conversation, and I believe one of the pillars of convergence, where we're allowing cross-platform, cross-game transactions, which has been a big issue with gamers investing hundreds, if not thousands of hours into a game to then, either finish it or be bored with it or for whatever personal reason not be able to play it anymore. And that value is locked in that walled garden because you can't take your World of Warcraft character and its the assets out of there. I mean, they stay there and you just stop playing. So that's tough luck with the ecosystem that we're creating. Now you have an opportunity to take that value creation and bring it into a different game. Maybe I'm playing, Kingdom of Hearts and I'm bored with it, but now I want to play Fortnite. I can take it out of there and bring it into Fortnite because we have this convergence platform that does exactly what the name says. It converges these different siloed environments together with a common currency.
That's exciting. I think about all the DLC I've purchased over the years, like even for like Commander Shepard with Mass Effect or something. It's like you bought all this DLC and I don't even have an Xbox 360 to play it on anymore, but I did spend the money. It would be awesome to transfer it over to another game or something like that. That's real neat. Are there any final thoughts though from Andrew, Jason? What kind of question?
Jared looks like he has a question.
I'm just thinking about this. So, I guess the big thing I wonder is I know that the part of the focus of this is to grow our investment, for the investment fund to grow the Silicon Nexus universe. So, is the focus of what companies should be investing in be more video game related, or could it be more general tech? I wanted to Yeah. So I mean, but it's also safe to say like I couldn't set up a fund and invest in a tomato company, or a farm.
Yeah, I believe Pete has a question.
Yeah, my question's centered around onboarding new publishers, and a new game is launched. They've got some new, I guess, skins, tradable digital assets. How long is that onboarding process to get maybe, to essentially get their items trading on the, I guess, the blockchain market? Yes.
I've had guys take 6 months, but it's always on the lawyer. It's really usually lawyers holding them up. It's been my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that turnaround is rather quick, and especially as these titles are being launched and they tend to run under the radar, right? Apex Legends, even though they don't have tradable skins, maybe they're heading in that direction, but it's seemingly a game that appeared almost out of nowhere. They did a really good job at keeping in stealth mode for that launch. And I feel that you'll be in a really good position as obviously more publishers start to launch their game titles, and they know that there's a way to create instant value in the blockchain space and through the convergence token set. That why not? Really is the question. Why wouldn't they want to layer, something that is trackable? All right, and it all makes sense with the direction that the world is going. So I just want to. I don't really have any follow up questions, but just want to applaud the efforts.
All right, Jordan with Bounty Zero X has a question.
When you're onboarding your new clients, I assume you're doing some kind of due diligence process.
Get him, Jared.
What are some flags you're looking for other than like liking the game or not liking it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh, and Pete, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I had a question about risk. Really, qualifying some of the gaming titles that you like to bring into your network. I imagine that the risk is fairly small to open it up to a wide range of games. What can you just kind of give me a from your perspective? Who's really putting in more risk, or who's taking the biggest risk out of this? You qualifying the games, or is that coming from the publisher and maybe missing the mark on where the real value is in blockchain?
I think also from an investor perspective, you know, if you're going in and you're putting in money into a firm, or let's say that, you know, you're putting in 4 million and you're getting 200 million in tokens, well, there's a lot of different games, a whole lot more opportunities that are going to come out of that. So you're spreading that risk out over more entities, and the likelihood of one or two being successful is very good. I mean, it's going to drastically improve it than just doing a single off investment in one entity.
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you all for jumping on. I did put in LinkedIn profiles, the ones I could grab, in the chat. So make sure you guys connect on there. It's clickable on the text chat, bottom right hand corner.
Well done.
Thanks, guys. Learn something new. Learn something new every day.
Yes. It happens occasionally, even to the best of us. I posted a schedule in chat just to reiterate. We've got 8 p.m. EST, Ethereum, I believe.
That's correct.
At 8 p.m. EST. Yeah, Ted Humble will be here from Chibis and Ethereum. And then we've got a panel at 10 p.m. EST, blockchain and esports. And then we have one at midnight, capping it off. DCL blogger from Decentraland will be here. So. I rechecked it once it was re-streamed or re-put it, and it was working, so that was good. Correct. Yeah, correct. You're right. There you go. Yeah, so the stream link is in chat now. Mm-hmm. So there are some on the live stream. You know, we're cycling in some different content there. Like battling. This is pretty cool. And then the large video screen in here, we're cycling things through here. We had Reality Clash up there earlier, then we'll switch it out.
Welcome to a live demo
Hello?
of the
I'm actually going to go to one of the wings. Just check it out real quick. Go over here to the right-hand side.
I thought it was a real good panel. I'm gonna eat some food, so I'm gonna be AWOL just for a little bit. See you guys in a little bit.
See you, Jared.
See you guys. I'll be back soon.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah, sorry about that. Oh, you're coming across.
Hey guys, I'm gonna head off for dinner. I'll be back for the final panel then. Great conference so far though.